All right. Well, hello and welcome to Biotensegrity party number 15. This is a multilingual Biotensegrity party. And so if you're not me or Lisa, you should probably, or one of the hosts, you should probably be muted right now if you're not already. We have a lot more people than we're used to, and we're trying to get everybody into their language-based rooms or set up to go into those as quickly as we can. So please bear with us. This is an online experiment. We've never done this before. I'm Susan Lowell de Solorzano. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C. My co-hosts, my regular co-hosts, Chris Clancy in Vancouver and Graham Scarr in Nottingham, are doing a lot of behind the scenes work today. So hello and thank you to them. And Doug Johnson and Lisa Babiuk. Doug's in Boston and Lisa's in St. Albert, Alberta, Canada, where Mariana tells us they have bears and moose. So Doug and Lisa, greetings and thank you for co-hosting with me today.
Thank you, Susan.
Now, each of our 5 non-English language rooms also have hosts, co-hosts. So we want to thank them and say hello. Maren Diel and Joachim Herman Dunkeshen, Olga Uzlova and Leonid Blum, sorry, Spasibo vam obom. Mariana Barreto and Fernando Tejero, muchas gracias a los dos. To Ana Altsubo, Sergio Fonseca, and Fabricio Magales, muito obrigado a ambos. And to Arifli Nicola and Anastasi Siotas, Ifkaristoke tus Dio. So, Lisa, are you ready to tell us about sponsors?
I am. Thank you, Susan. The Biotensegrity Tea Party is a production of the Biotensegrity Archive, and it's made possible by the support of our wonderful sponsors. Handspring Publishing in East Lothian, Scotland, produces research-based material for movement and manual therapy professionals. Check them out. The British Fascia Symposium is another of our sponsors. Please go and sign up for their newsletter so that you can be contacted with exciting upcoming events. Artifact Pro of Madrid, Spain has a wide range of wonderfully constructed tensegrity models. Check them out. Embodied Biotensegrity is Chris's educational organization in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and she's got a lot of exciting courses and offerings that should also be checked out. All of the links will be in the chat. And you can also find these links in the Biotensegrity Archive newsletter. Thank you so much to all the volunteers that contribute to the success of these tea party events that connects us all. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. And we also want to thank Atlas Balance in Sweden because they're the ones who are allowing us to use the video that is going to be shown in each of the 6 different language-based rooms today as a sort of kickoff for the discussion. After we do that, after we do the toast, we'll do the breakout rooms, see the videos, and have about a half hour for discussion. And then we'll gather together again, and somebody from each of the different language rooms will just give us a little 2-minute highlight of what happened in their room. And then we'll get a little looser in our format and have an open discussion at that point. So why don't we get to our toast? Let's see, shall we start with German? Joachim, are you there?
Yes, hi. I'm Joachim from Germany, and I want just to say, zum Wohl, Biotensegrity verbindet uns alle.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, auf die Gesundheit.
Save your beverages. We've got a lot of toasting. And in Greek. Erifili, are you there?
Kalispera. Hi from Athens.
All right.
Υγιένεται.
Thank you. Let's see. Let's have Russian. Olga.
Привет.
Okay.
And great. Go ahead, Sergio.
There were some Spanish-speaking people in our room there, so maybe we need to reorganize a little bit. And
Okay,
now
let's
I don't
finish.
know.
So hold on a second, because we'll finish the toast. And anybody who's, but let me say, anybody who's in the wrong language room, okay, someone is sharing their screen.
Gonzalo Perez sharing his screen, so maybe
Okay,
Gonzalo might want to stop.
maybe you can wait until you're in your language room before you share screen. Anyway, so we want to just get through all the toasts. I think we have not had Portuguese.
Okay, so
I think
Anna
Anna,
was supposed to do it. Is Anna here?
is Anna here? Okay,
Anna?
you're going to have to
Oh.
toast for her, Sergio.
Okay, I don't have a cup with me, so I'll gesture, okay?
We'll trust you to drink later.
Ok, very good. So, bem-vindo a todos os brasileiros ao Biotensegrity Tea Party. É uma honra ter todos vocês aqui. Um grande abraço.
There we go.
Bom, sou brasileira também.
Okay.
Brazilian.
En español, por favor. Fernando.
From
I'm
Brazil
here.
too.
Bienvenidas, bienvenidos a todos. Salud, camaradas. Disfrutemos
Salud.
Biotensegrity Party.
Gracias. And Doug.
To everybody's good health, and in particular to Steve Levin's good health and long life.
Wonderful. Gambe. So we want to, we're doing our best to get everybody into the language room that they've asked to be in. If you're not in the right language room, I believe you have the, once you're in a room, that you're empowered to leave that room, to come back to the English room, which is the main room.
So I'm going to translate that. I think we'll translate that into our own languages so they know, okay?
Great, go ahead.
Si por casualidad están en un grupo que no es el de su idioma, ustedes pueden salirse y solicitar entrar en el grupo del idioma. Go ahead.
And we have
Como hacer isso?
Should I do the same for the Portuguese group?
Please.
Yes, please.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm in the Portuguese group.
Muito bom.
I don't know what I do.
A todos os brasileiros que estão aguardando aqui, nós iremos para uma sala em português, mas se por um acaso alguém que estiver lá não falar português, você pode retornar para a sala principal a qualquer momento, clicando, deixe a sala, tá bom? E aí você retorna para o grupo principal que vai redirecioná-lo para o seu grupo. É só solicitar que a Susan cuidará disso.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, but the rooms have disappeared for now, right?
For now, yes.
So we can't get
now-
back. So I guess this is the main confusion.
Okay. Hold on.
Подождите, дайте я могу сказать. Вопрос в том, что сейчас временно комнаты исчезли, все благополучно вернемся в русскоязычную комнату потом, и из нее можно будет перемещаться туда-обратно.
Understood.
And the language rooms should be open now, right? So everybody can go to them.
Now, yes.
So let's get everybody into their language rooms, and I'll let the people in the rooms decide, right? When to show your films.
And can I say, if there's any problems, please come back to the English room and feedback. You can let me know in the chat. Rachel or Lisa, will you be my contact to keep track of all of that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Michelle, who has started screen sharing, please do not share your screen. So once people are in the breakout rooms, they can share screens to show the movie. Can we control it when somebody inadvertently screen shares?
View options side by side.
Here we go. Yes.
I don't know how.
Okay.
Is it fixed, Susan?
Well, I no longer have it in front of me. So it seems fixed, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think people are just accidentally hitting the green button.
Too many buttons.
Too many buttons. So I'm hoping there are fewer people now who are in a room they don't want to be in. Doug, you're going to screen share in a minute and show the video. Is that right? Yes. So
Eu não vou conseguir, eu tô prestando atenção aqui, Tuti. Mas o que é?
so while so everybody knows in their own language that they're getting put into the breakout rooms one by one. Is that right? In English, we could start having a discussion. I think.
Yeah.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. So are there any of you who have not seen this video? And go ahead and unmute yourselves. You don't know which video it is. Okay. About 3 years ago, maybe Atlas Balance in Sweden did one of those whiteboard storyboards. And so if Doug shows that, Chris, is that going to mess you up putting people into rooms?
No, you should be able to show it.
Great. Why don't you go ahead, Doug? Let's see the video.
Since ancient times, mankind has tried to understand the world that surrounds him, the earth, the sky, the stars, and the planets. When Isaac Newton saw an apple fall to the ground in the late 1600s, he asked himself, why does an apple fall to the ground when the moon doesn't? This led to Newton's laws of gravity and movement, and a picture of the universe as a clockwork in which all parts move in a predictable pattern. And Newton's ideas formed the basis for classical physics up to the 20th century, and these ideas still affect the way we look at the world today. When new railways began to increasingly cluster the world, a new need emerged: common time. In 1879, Swedish Standard Time was introduced, when the train required reliable timetables, and when the telegraph united the United States and Europe, global time was established with all the time zones that we have today. But what is time? When Albert Einstein launched the theory of relativity in the early 20th century, he turned everything upside down. Newton's laws about gravity and movement no longer made sense. The thing with physics is that it must be coherent from the smallest element, micro, to the largest solar systems, macro. The theory of relativity, the universe, and quantum physics have forced both physicists and mathematicians to reconsider. New discoveries evoke new insights. The electron microscope has allowed us to discover bacteria, viruses, genes, RNA, and DNA. The deeper we have gone, the more we have learned. But if physics must work from micro to macro, does that not also apply to biology? At the Natural History Museum in Washington, D.C., back in the 70s, the orthopedic Stephen Levin saw a giant dinosaur with a very long neck. Suddenly, it hit him. It shouldn't be possible. In a body where muscles and skeleton work like levers, a throat of such length should never cope with the enormous force of gravity. The dinosaur would fall apart. Levin knew that he was onto something and recalled something that he had read about, tensegrity, a structural principle coined by architect Buckminster Fuller 10 years earlier, where hard parts like spells and soft parts like ropes create a flexible force through the combination of tension and stability, just like the Needle Tower in Seattle, built in 1968, 6 floors straight up, consisting of almost nothing but air. Levin realized that for the body to work, it needs just this. It's the only model that by itself fits all living organisms. He called his discovery Biotensegrity, and that changed our view of how the human body is built. New discoveries evoke new insights. The idea of a skeleton as a structure that all muscles and organs attach to and hang upon, where muscles and skeleton work together like mechanics, is obsolete. Instead, we began to look at what surrounds the muscle and the skeletons, studying the connective tissue, the fascia. Fascia is a network of connective tissue that encloses everything throughout the body, from muscles and bones to organs and cells. It's like a spider web of hard and soft parts, strong as steel but flexible as threads, just as Levin showed with his biotensegrity. The fascia neutralizes the gravitational force in the body, preventing us from collapsing. It's a complete body block from micro to macro. In 1998, the biologist Donald Ingber showed that even the cell, the smallest element of the body, is surrounded by fascia. The fascia acts as a cell's scaffold, which you can read more about in the article Architecture of Life. The fascia is also vital for balance and coordination and contains neurons that signal pain throughout the nervous system, and here you can also find inflammatory cells. The fascia also acts as a defense against shock. For example, if you hit your foot, it makes sure that the force of the impact is distributed to your legs, knees, hip, and back. However, this is relatively new research. In 2005, the Fascia Research Society was formed, an international network of researchers dedicated to the detailed study of fascia. At a lecture, surgeon Jean-Claude Guimbeteau presented a movie about living connective tissue and said, "We thought that fascia was nothing, and now we know it's everything." Anatomy professor Siegfried Menze showed that inflammation in the fascia is a source of pain in the lumbar spine. And at the 2015 conference, veterinarian Vibeke Elbrun presented that even horses have the same fascia structure as humans, as well as how mechanical deep way affect the connective tissue during treatment by turning off pain receptors, increase circulation, and reduce inflammation. In Sweden, Professor Carly Arfors and innovator Hans Bolin lead the search for a better understanding of the fascia, and new discoveries evoke new insights. Professor Menze showed that the inflammation in the fascia leads to pain in the back. Now we know that similar conditions exist in cases of whiplash, tennis elbow, heel spur, and frozen shoulder. We also know that the inflammation is related to diabetes, Alzheimer's, and even cancer. New innovations facilitate the treatment of the fascia on both humans and animals, and bring new reports from thousands of horses running faster and people with reduced pain every month. The research on what part the fascia plays in our bodies continues, and more discoveries await around the corner.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. At Sterling Structural Therapy, we use an innovative, completely non-invasive approach to the treatment of orthopedic and chronic pain conditions.
So are we all back? Susan? We've lost Susan. Well, at this point, I believe the idea is we're going to have a discussion inspired by the video. Is there anybody that would like to make any comments? Graham, I have a feeling there's a few things you might want to mention.
You put me on the spot again, but the video is really nice because it gives a broad spectrum of the field we're involved in. It puts biotensegrity in context with what's gone before as a replacement, a new way of thinking. That's what makes this video so exciting, because it isn't just an isolated concept. It's connected to everything else, either supporting or refuting the other things.
But yeah, that's a good point. And this is from a few years ago, so it's not the most recent information necessarily. And for those of you who live in the United States, you'll notice that Needle Tower, which is in Washington, D.C., is being drawn in front of the Seattle Space Needle, which is in Seattle, Washington. So, you know, it's not perfect, but it's really, people kept asking for like a 5-minute, sorry, I meant to be on screen. People kept asking for a 5-minute introduction to biotensegrity. And until we have that, well, we have this, which I think does a pretty good job. And I think what we can do, we're a small enough group, just 40 something people. We're still trying to get the Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking people into the rooms they want to be in. So thank you for your patience there, but I think you can just put yourself on camera and unmute yourself if you have something you want to say.
Can I ask a question? This is Eleanor.
Please, please.
Absolutely.
So I'm so excited. I loved listening to that. Boy, you got a lot in 5 minutes because it went at the speed of light. But I love it and I want to watch it again. And I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner and I do Tellington T-touch, which is very light 1.25 touches along the skin. And for me, it's always felt like we're gliding the skin over the fascia and communicating in the fascia. And as Linda Tellington Jones says, is that we're talking about the communication between the cells. But in my Feldenkrais practice, what I felt like I noticed, and Graham, again, not to put you on the spot or anyone, if you can help me with this, I can feel, not just in my own body, but in my clients, that when the fascia gets tight, it clamps onto the nerves that go through the fascia, and that's the nerve pain they're feeling. And sometimes, or often, even with peripheral neuropathy in the lower legs.
Okay, let me stop you there, just because we have so many people that may have questions. And let me say thank you, Eleanor. What I'm going to do is when you have a statement or a question, to keep it fairly short, because there are a lot of us. And then I'm sure that if Steve wants to pipe up and add something, he will. We can, rather than directing any question to a specific person, we're just having a group party here.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you, Eleanor, for understanding. Did you get to finish?
The question is, can fascia, because you mentioned in the video mentions nerve, does that affect it?
Does the fascia affect the nerves? Jan, you probably would be good for this as well. I don't know if Steve might be going around to different language rooms, so.
Yes, it affects everything. It's my answer. It's any constriction in the fascia is going to affect any and every structure and organ of the body and have a cascade effect through the body. That's my answer to that one.
Oh, okay. Steve's been booted. So Doug, are you there?
Yes.
You're going to take over handling this discussion while I try to get Steve back into the Zoom.
Okay. So, well, I'd like to throw out a question is, and once again, there's a lot of people, so people could be concise, but it's such a remarkable thing to me how this concept of tensegrity and biotensegrity resonates with so many people from so many different backgrounds. I happen to be a musician, and oftentimes people ask me, well, what does this have to do with what you do? And my focus is actually working with movements and working with musicians that want to optimize their movement for playing, and also that are having pain. And this concept I mean, just having this model in hand and understanding tactily how everything communicates. We can say everything's connected, but that doesn't really begin to communicate what I feel when I put my hands on this model the first time. And so that was such a, and still is such a powerful thing. And so for me, that was my interface in with Biotensegrity. And I'm just curious if people would like to share from their different backgrounds, what is the most powerful resonance with this concept, with what you do? And feel free to jump in. Or perhaps I'll call on some people.
Doug, I'll jump in and carry on from the discussion that we had a couple of tea parties ago, where we focused on musicians and the resonance, and then a lot of that resonated with me in my work with athletes. So fine-tuning instruments, fine-tuning the body as an instrument of movement, and how it was very similar of how we engage with movement and whatever it is that we're doing, and we can apply this to all of us, that we refine our movements to get efficiency. The body's always looking for efficiencies. And so it really resonates across the board. And when we start to recognize that and look at movement from a whole perspective rather than the parts, all of us can get really efficient in that way.
Absolutely.
A lot of crossover.
Can I make a little quick answer to what Eleanor was saying about peripheral neuropathy? I've no doubt the fascia has an influence on the peripheral nerves. I know as an osteopath, when a patient comes in, we try to take a case history and find out where the problem is and identify it as a nerve root or what else is going on. And so many times the symptoms of the client don't fit the textbook classification, and you wonder, there's something more going on here. And I've no doubt the fascia is involved in ways that we can't always put a finger on it. Absolutely, you get strange sensations and you wonder, what is this? And then you have further investigations, palpation, what have you, to try and home in on the problem and work out how to do something with it. So yes, I'm no doubt the fascia and peripheral neuropathy are intertwined. It's all part of the biotensegrity concept, the way the body is put together, or should we say, organizes itself better.
Do this.
Graham, would you say that the body organizes itself based on its function, and that we can change the organization of that as we refine the function? And so manual therapists do that with their hands and techniques, and then movement professionals approach that with movement. And so we can change that through our work with the results of the function of that body up to that point.
Great.
Yes, we can make changes, and then the body takes those changes and incorporates them into the whole system.
Right.
Making it more efficient, which is what we all want, I believe.
Yes, but it makes itself efficient.
Anybody who isn't in the right language room at this point, please send Chris a text directly. We're getting a message, Steve's been bumped, that we've hit a limit in the number of people. And so we're trying to resolve that, because we did try at least to upgrade to allow for up to 500 people. So who haven't we heard from on this issue, or do we have other questions or things they want to Everybody just wants to listen today. That's
No,
fine.
Diane is saying she wants to say something.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
Sorry.
now, I finally got unmuted. Okay. Vladimir Yonda says there's no such thing as a local lesion, which brings us to the whole issue of body movement and how the body movement is expressing whatever is going on. So in my practice as a myofascial pain specialist, that I created that title for myself, and a certified movement analyst. I always started after history with looking at the movement, and you look for a problem in the movement that and that movement is expressing the inflammation, the restriction, whatever needs your attention. And it may or may not be the right place, but you have to go into what you see. But I think the key is that body movement as a whole is a tremendous expression of the whole, and it all works together because of the fascia and because of the connectedness and the relationship among all of the components in the body. It's hard to think of the fact that we are only with tension and compression expressed as fascia. This is what we are, and it's really it's a basis for going into movement and going into treatment. I'm done.
Can I point out something that we all know, which is that fascia isn't a distinct thing. Fascia is continuous with everything. It surrounds every cell. It's continuous into bone, into muscle. Muscles are muscle cells enclosed within fascia. So fascia is everywhere. We know this, but it's sometimes easy to compartmentalize it. Now we've got the cells, now we've got the fascia, now we've got the muscles and bones, but it's so important to keep reminding ourselves, and I keep forgetting in the way I talk and the things I say. Always remember that fascia is part of the entire body.
It is the body. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that?
It is the body.
It is. Yes. Yes.
It is.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Which is hard to get your head around. You know, we've been organizing it in bits and pieces for too long. But it's very hard to come back to the whole. I do think that, and this is why my solution to people having fascia that doesn't work well is systematic variety of movement. And then people need to have a method to do that, because we can't just do the body part. We have to do the whole and let it come to the reorganization of itself.
Yeah.
So that's what systematic variety of movement is all about.
Yeah.
I would love to hear how people's words have changed in their practice, whether it's as a movement practitioner or a manual therapist. Because I'm sure everybody's experiencing shifts in language and how we communicate this with the people that we work with. I would be really interested to learn and hear your experiences.
And I think if somebody wants to speak, they can just unmute yourselves. If it gets crazy, we'll mute. Don't worry.
So I just wanted to say that it's quite timely with what's happening now, with you know, the shift through Corona and the oneness that's emerging, and those who are more in tune with the spiritual changes that are happening with humanity. We're all talking about the oneness, and we are all one. And it's really nice that it fits in within the body, that the body is all one, and we can't make that separation. And, you know, if we think of the fascia as responsible not just for the biotensegrity and holding us against gravity and allowing integrative movement, it also allows the communication between the cells and all the rest of, you know, the endocrine system and the immune system and all the other systems work within the fascia. It also allows for the biophotonic light, and also allows for consciousness, and also allows for the connection. So when, I mean, I'm a myofascial release therapist, and when I put my hands on people, I feel their insides, as I'm sure many other body workers do, and people who put hands on people, and what I'm feeling, you know, if I can feel their pain, their inflammation, what's going on in their body, surely that's a connection that's even beyond what we can explain in words, within that oneness of the fascia representing everything within the body, but also everything within our connection. So I think, you know, we've taken it from a myofascia to the fascia as in the whole body, from inside every cell to the whole body, to the transmitter and integrator of the whole body. And I think it's a transmitter and integrator of humanity in a way, and consciousness as well. So we can really take it to more and more levels.
Dana,
Yeah.
where are you coming in from?
I'm in the UK, just outside London, and I'm a physiotherapist, and I work with fascia all the time. That's what I do.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I'd like to just say something.
Please, who's that?
It's MJ.
Great. Where are you, MJ?
I'm in Ontario, outside of Toronto.
Thank you.
So I'm a therapist, been a therapist for over 35 years, and I came from a systems approach, which was very satisfying for my brain. So every system had different techniques, and over the first 10 years, you just grab onto all these techniques, and it's amazing work. But my being knew different. And when I got allowed that to express myself through my hands, I connected in such a way that it was a network, and it wasn't about systems anymore. So I've gone from this techniques that were individual for every single little piece of anatomy in the body, to doing one technique that addresses that unifying tissue of the fascial system. So from a fascial matrix, from a cell to cell, so it goes from a micro to a macro. And then I don't know who was speaking beforehand, Dana? And it does start to, you start to appreciate the field. So the field within the system, the field outside the system, the field of me being a therapist interacting with the field of the client, interacting with the field. And when you get to me, when you bring in that intersection of awareness through your hands and your sense of connection, you just start to understand that this communication and information is larger than just cell-to-cell communication for me. And so I'm always looking at the story, and the story for me is in the quiet moments. It's not in the big symptoms, it's in the whisper. And that's how I approach my work. And I didn't understand biotensegrity until 1998 when I read Donald Ingberg's article. And that's when everything started to make sense, and I put the other stuff aside, and I just allowed myself to approach that unifying tissue my way.
And I'll just say also that, so I'm curious, MJ, because to me, networks are part of systems.
Yeah.
And it is all a systems science, biotensegrity very much. And then it's systems within systems.
Within systems.
Yeah, so it's getting that sort of
right.
connected hierarchy concept together too, that
and I think the hierarchy for me is one of the key pieces, this aspect of wholeness, and that every piece can influence every other piece, but not necessarily what I was taught, which was artery affects this, and then the veins affect this, and then the nerves affect this, and then you have to seek the dysfunction within the arterial system and seek it within the venous system. And so this way it allows the body to speak to me and show me at what system is the restriction within the whole.
But in a way, in that oneness, I mean, I've discovered through kind of tuning, like you say, MJ, into the quiet moments, that more and more systems have responded to that touch.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I was aiming at releasing a restriction which would change the mechanics of the pelvis or whatever, and change movement and so on, and reduce pain in an SI joint or whatever. But actually putting my hands on cleared the bruise at the same time and opened the flow of the lymphatic system and calmed down the autonomic system and changed the skin rash that was on the skin. You know, all these things changed at the same time as I was putting my hands on and waiting for a restriction to release. And that's the beauty of the oneness.
Oh, completely.
And, you know, every time you discover more and more layers that respond to the same touch.
Yeah, I completely agree with that in how my approach is also.
Great. And particularly if you're new, don't be shy about speaking up. We love hearing from people that are just finding this.
Susan, can I say something? I've actually got to leave in a couple of minutes, but
yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And interestingly enough, in a very similar system to what MJ just described, you know, as a teacher, we tend to pull technique apart because we really want to understand the sort of these minute systems and how they work. But in the last 2 or 3 months, and since I've been attending these Biotensegrity tea parties, I'm just using certain principles, and I've been working with students just from observations. For instance, you know, rotating the whole arm in a spiral, and within you know, the period of one lesson, I can fix issues that I've been trying to work on for months with students, and nothing that I've been sort of teaching has been wrong. But by just addressing the bigger picture of the sort of tensegrity unit, which I still frankly don't even understand quite, it's just amazing the results that are happening. Because when you deal with the whole, everything follows, and it's just beautiful to observe. So that's from a, you know, musician's point, an instrumentalist perspective.
Steve's having trouble getting in, and he's watching from YouTube, so he's loving the conversation. And what were you going to say, Lisa?
I gotta stop waving. It gets me in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
He's watching from YouTube, so I waved. Sorry, guys.
You're waving at Steve. Great. Yeah, so just unmute yourself if you've got something that you want to jump in with here.
This is Patricia. I'm in Seattle, Washington, USA. And Lisa, since you asked the question a few minutes ago about how biotensegrity changes how we speak with clients or students or whoever it is that we're working with. I do hands-on body work and also teach movement. And with both, I have my students or my clients walk after a session. And while they're walking, I give them verbal prompts to think about their movement differently. And since starting the Shifting Paradigms class with Chris Clancy and Embodied Biotensegrity, I've been experimenting with the few online sessions that I've done since then with using prompts that relate to the language of biotensegrity. And it's just really interesting. And people tell me that they're incredibly helpful, the prompts. So in watching the fascia video at the beginning of this, I was looking at that DNA, that spiral of the DNA, and thinking, oh, this is how I can get people to visualize spirals in their body. Like all of us know that DNA spiral. So just Biotensegrity has given me a way to think about how different kinds of shape exist in all scales in the system, and prompting people to think about their bodies in that way. So I've been using the language of biotensegrity less with trying to explain things, and more with using them for movement prompts that have really interesting results, kind of like I think what Jenny was talking about too. So
can
I'm
you share
excited
one of
to
those
do them.
prompts?
Oh,
Patricia?
I knew you'd ask. I'm trying to remember. I need to write them down. Somebody the other day asked me if I've been writing down my prompts. Maybe that was Chris, and I haven't done a very good job of that. I kind of come up with them in the moment. But from one of our conversations in the Shifting Paradigms class, I got somebody said how the ground force. I'm not going to use quite the correct vocabulary, but the energy from the ground
reaction
movement, yeah, can get kind of caught in a certain area of the body. So I just prompted the person. I said, imagine that the what was the term, Graham?
Ground reaction
Yeah.
force.
Imagine that the ground reaction force, I didn't use those words, but imagine that the ground reaction force doesn't stop at that ankle or that knee or that shoulder where you normally are aware of stiffness. Imagine it continuing through your body. And I suggested maybe it goes from your left foot up through your right shoulder. Maybe it goes from your feet up through your head, but giving them all these different suggestions for how the ground force could continue through their body without getting caught in one spot. And the client was like, that was so helpful. And I feel like that those little pieces of imagery, like I was pretty interested in Graham's article about how even things kind of illness is also the body finding efficiency and expressing its efficiency. So I'm like, how do we interrupt the efficiencies that are leading towards things that are uncomfortable and introduce the body to efficiencies that lead toward more comfort or more optimal function? And so I've just been using these little prompts to see if I can change the way people think about their movement or notice their movement with that goal in mind.
Well, that's really interesting about gravity, because the old way of thinking about the human body is that we're built to resist gravity. But actually, Steve wrote a paper a couple of years ago called The Springy Step, where he emphasized that when we walk, we use the ground reaction force, the act of stepping or running. We use that force that goes through the entire body, which makes it much more efficient because we can draw on that energy throughout and then carry on doing things, which is so much more efficient than trying to overcome gravity with each step we walk. I mean, sometimes it can feel like that, but really the body's got the potential to take that gravity force and make really good things with it. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Hi, I agree with, this is Carol Boggs from Washington, D.C. area. I agree with Patricia about using that kind of what you're calling a prompt. I think it's very powerful and very useful. I sort of talk about how the ground reaction force enters in, and the question is, how pervasive is it? Does it get stopped by tension? Does it get stopped by a collapse pattern? In other words, does the door close and it can't reverberate through the whole system? So giving ideas to allow that ground reaction force to spread and open and widen and lengthen and permeate a bigger part of the system, it can be very powerful for people in the sense that, oh, efficiency, I don't have to work so hard to be upright. I don't have to work so hard in order to move through space.
Carol, I like that you mentioned not just patterns of tension, but also patterns of collapse.
Yes.
So often people focus on tension. How can I release tension? And specifically in musicians, coaching musicians and teaching, probably the most common word that's used is relax. You just need to relax. You need to relax and sing. You need to relax and focus on the music. And so often that prompt creates patterns of collapse that then you have a collapsed wrist, and then your upper your neck is tight, and and people always say, well, you need to relax your neck, and it's like, actually you need to not collapse your hand, and that's I agree. That's my simplest one, is just avoiding using the word relax. There was a famous piano teacher that said the most important thing is to relax, but no one understands what that means, and I think that really kind of encapsulates the trouble, the challenge with that.
I talk to my clients about let's trade off the relax word and use release instead. That it's a selective releasing of that which is not necessary. If you're engaged more than you need to be, then you're not, then efficiency is out the window. So if you can release that which is not necessary and clear the field for the force to move through, then that's a better deal.
And also mobilizing parts that aren't moving. If it's frozen, that is a problem. But if it's mobilized, then that problem is largely dealt with. Yeah. Nice.
And we have this in martial arts too. It needs to be integrated. And so if there's too much, I don't know, pull and too much push in different parts, then things get cut off and you are less integrated. And so that relaxed or released has to do with an integration, that is an allowing the ground reaction forces and the gravity and the interplay and the push and pull to get everywhere and be operative everywhere. I think we have about 5 more minutes and then everyone's going to be, so we're way off schedule. But we've tried to do a crazy, technologically amazing thing today. So I think the other language rooms will be starting to join us soon for the recaps. So
then I have a comment on the current discussion regarding using, hi everybody. It's foggy north of the Golden Gate Bridge and it's cold. So I've been running around trying to get warm while following the conversation. So regarding the important points you brought up about prompts, when you were prompting your client, when your client was practicing walking after the bodywork session, and then the discussion of how different types of prompts, different words seem to either bring on beneficial results or not so much in terms of collapse, in terms of release, relax, collapse, etc. Seems to me that one of the difficulties with verbal cues, but what else are you going to use to convey? There's touch, and then there's intention, and there are words. But one of the difficulties is that unless one is quite the skilled poet, that words are linear, and then they bring us back to the specific focus on a specific area, rather than the systemic whole of the neuromyofascial system, the structure. I go for phrases that try to suggest a balance of the forces. We were speaking previously about the balance of tension and compression, and about not only the balance, but the distribution of tension and compression throughout the structure. Now, if I said that to my client when they were walking around, they would either fall over or levitate, one of the two, because they would think I was completely nuts. But I aim for movement experiences that will absolutely require a distribution of tension and compression throughout the structure. If not, someone falls over. Just joking, they're not going to hurt themselves. Or if not, the tone from the instrument is so extraordinary, it gets their attention. Okay.
I'd like to say something about the following that and several others, the prompting idea. I think you can get people to create their own prompts by, say you have a movement sequence, okay, which is your call it your diagnostic sequence. And you have people walk before they do that, and ask them to pay attention to how they're feeling and what they're noticing in their bodies. You do the sequence, get them back up again, and have them walk and let them decide what's changed. Because then they will be telling themselves, they will asking themselves, what do I feel? And nobody can feel for anybody else. So that's another way, by using contrast, little before and after, pre and post tests, that will help people come up with their own ideas of how to, about prompting.
Great. We probably have about 4 or 5 minutes, I think, before everybody starts coming back. So especially if you have not had a chance to chime in, we'd love to hear from you. And you can just unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Fiona in Aberdeen in Scotland, and I've been a manual and movement therapist, manual therapist for about 25 years and yoga teacher for the last 10 years. And I've done quite a lot of dissection work in the lab with various people like Gil Headley and John Sharkey. And yeah, so when you see, having learned anatomy, classical, I know classical anatomy. I'm even doing postgraduate anatomy right now, just to learn more classical anatomy. But when you see it in the lab, it's just so different. And the ideas of biotensegrity totally fit with that, because you see a lot of things in the lab that you wouldn't get explained in a book, but biotensegrity does explain that fullness. So talking about the nerves earlier on, you've got the wrapping, you see these big thick wrappings and tiny thin wrappings and many different fabrics that are there, very much functioning together. It's so obvious. And so for using prompts, I mean, I've got my icosahedrons and I use those. I love to use that for cues and trying to explain to people how the body moves as a whole, even things like this, little pop-up puppets, because, you know, you can get that collapse if you like, but then, you know, what is it that makes something become more whole? And it's, you know, it's not just the ground reaction forces and all these, I mean, it's just so many different things coming together. So having joined in with all these biotensegrity tea party things and just really studying it, it makes a lot of sense. So when you're coming to verbal cues with people, it's wonderful to feel it yourself, to embody it yourself, and then that also the language then starts to come out differently for people to feel and for people to take on. So more and more I find myself, it's more of a feeling thing. So you're passing on, people can really feel what you mean in the words that you use and that you choose, and they can respond in that way. It's dramatic, the words that you choose for wholeness and everything that's working within the body, or from the vibration, the sound, the touch, the movement. So in yoga, it's wonderful to work with the postures and the movement, but it's also wonderful to work in stillness and to get a concept of the whole. Yeah, so really enjoying it all.
Fiona, Patricia says she'd love to hear about your biggest biotensegrity aha moment from all of that dissection experience, but maybe you can make it quick before the languages start coming back, the different people, but go ahead.
Yeah, I would, yeah, there's been a lot, because I've been doing, I've spent months in a lab now. And right, oh gee whiz. I think really it takes a while before you really start to see the bigger connection in the whole, because I was so used to being able to see parts and wanting to see different things. It takes a while to get that concept of everything integrating together. So I think the biggest aha moment for me has probably been seeing beyond the musculoskeletal, because we can all get the fact that every muscle fiber, every muscle group, blah blah, is all joined in together, and it's 600 odd pockets and one muscle squeezed into those pockets. I think that's perfectly understandable. I think the biggest was probably when you go deeper and you see the peritoneum and how that like folds in folds around, and organs aren't just kind of sitting there in place. They've very much got their functional surrounding parts that all work together and communicate. And that's when I really switched on to all the ideas of more interoception way beyond the musculoskeletal system. I think I've loved that. For one thing, many other things.
Wonderful. So any other, again, particularly if we haven't heard from you yet, some of you might be new to the group, can tell us what your thoughts are. Steve, I know you were out for a while. Did you have anything you wanted to say, or are you happy to just take the back seat today?
I'm happy to just be listening. I learn from listening for everybody else, and I also learn what I have to emphasize and bring about further. I'm going to have to do more work on the energy thing and where you get all your energy to move from. Because if you stop and think about it, a body in rest has to stay at rest unless forced by an outside force, and muscles are inside forces. So you have to rethink how muscles are really being used.
It's where, if I could comment on that, it's where the attention of the mover goes, right? If you want to expand your sense of movement, then you reach out into your kinesphere and you reach away from the body, and you use spatial intent to do that. And that is a tremendous, that not only has energetic events in the body, but you are reaching into the energy of the space around you, and that feeds back.
But I think also, Diane, because that's all, I think those are great points. I think what Steve's talking about is for a body to move through space, for your center of mass to go from A to B.
Yes,
it needs an external force. We can't do that with our internals.
Oh, yes, we can. I mean, when you move everything, when you direct your movement, the whole body is responding. Okay.
But it is using outside forces. It is using gravity. In other words, if you were, put it this way, if you were floating in space,
yes,
in a gravity-free environment,
yes,
you could not move through space. You could not change you could change your shape in that space.
No,
but
you would have to
move your center across space.
I'm going to interject here. Breakout rooms are rejoining in the coming minute. So I hope you've got someone to summarize.
We need an equal and opposite reaction to.
Yeah.
Yes, you would have to anchor yourself to the space station. Okay.
Yes, and
that
then
way,
you're using something else. Exactly.
Yes, and then you go and reach for something because you're out there to do a task. You go and reach for something, and then you can do that.
Right. Without the space station, you can't.
No, but we're all here.
Right. So that's the clarifying of the internal versus the external. The space station is external. Yeah.
Ouch.
Maybe Doug, do you have an idea of a general statement or two about the conversation? I'm apologizing because I've been in and out so much with the technical end of things with the text messages.
I have a few things. Maybe some people could help me tell me what I missed. So
well, let's wait. Chris is going to maybe cue us at that when that time comes when everybody's back.
It looks like everybody is back. We have 97 participants here. A thumbs up from Sergio. Thumbs up from Anastasi, Fabricio. Excuse my pronunciation here. Do we have Maren? Do we have the German group back? There's Mariana.
We've got.
There's Maren. Okay, Susan, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, Doug is going to give us a 2-minute cap from the English room, and then we'll move through the other languages. Go ahead, Doug.
Should we individually stop recording before that happens? Just let me ask.
Yes, stop recording in the language rooms, Chris.
Sure, and keep recording in this room just so we've got a backup.
Yes.
Or, you know, or you can edit out later. I don't mind if you keep the recording on or off. It's just a matter of.
Yes, for after this, you can go back into your language rooms if you want for discussions and after party. So
you bring us to English room, and Portuguese people are in the English room. I don't know why.
Everybody's in the English room for about 10 minutes right now. So hang on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Doug.
So the first part of the discussion was a lot about fascia, prompted by the video we watched. And the emphasis is on the whole body is fascia. And Graham emphasized that our traditional, our heritage of compartmentalized thinking can help make us think that fascia is another one of those compartments, instead that it's all pervasive and as somebody said so clearly, the body is fascia. And some people were talking about how seeing the whole body is connected in that way when, as a therapist, they work on one particular identified concern that you get these remarkable responses that weren't expected in other places of the body. That you work on one part of the body and a rash somewhere else goes away, for instance. One of the second parts that was interesting is how we use language and how our use of language has evolved since we've taken on the idea of biotensegrity, and in particular the idea that words that create concepts of fragmentation will inevitably create those kind of fragmentations in terms of our movements or fragmented view of movement, whereas words that prompt a sense of integration in the whole have much better results. Specifically, one of them was looking at ground reaction force. So as you feel the contact with the floor as you take a step and you feel that ground reaction force, do you feel it just going to your ankle? And if so, what if it continued through the knee and through the hip, and in particular, maybe identify a place where you might find some stiffness and allow that to go all the way through the whole body.
Great. Okay. Let's make sure we have time for everybody. So Anastasi, you want to tell us how it went in the Greek room?
Sure. We had a fun time. We got a little bit slow getting going just to get everyone there, but we got to talk about what is the best way to translate the word biotensegrity, and we have a beautiful word, bioproendasi, which is a great word that Erafili found for us. So we talked about that. We talked about discrepancy in the video itself. I got to show people in that room the actual not the Space Needle, but the Needle Tower, and I have a video of it, actually me making it move, so we all got to watch that, which was fun. We talked a lot about the nature of fascia and how it evolves embryologically, the idea of the circle beginning as one, and how cells just differentiate, and the idea of forces, compression and tension, leading to whether something's going to become a hard thing or a stretch thing. We talked a lot about joint play, In fact, all of us were Feldenkrais people, so we got to talk about how biotensegrity meets that methodology, and the idea that this is such a wonderful platform to speak about biotensegrity gives us a chance to speak across modalities, and how we can talk to yoga teachers and Pilates instructors and Alexander and Rolfers, and it doesn't matter what mode, we can all come together in this one language about biotensegrity. So,
great.
Yeah,
thank
thanks.
you. Thank you. Maren, I don't see you, but can we hear about the German room? Are you guys here?
Yes, I'm here. Here I am. I don't know if you see me, but I can tell you. We were talking about the great benefit for people and horses who got stuck in or have been limited by lever-based movement ideas and motion patterns. That the idea of biotensegrity opens a big space of possibilities for another way of moving and another way of learning. And we were talking about fascia as an organ, as a problem-solving organ. And I really love that video because it's so clear.
Yeah,
it's everything in it, and it's great. I love it. I've already shared it before, and it's really nice. And another point was that biotensegrity works at every scale from micro to macro, as also a very interesting thing. I would like to go deeper into the rabbit hole because it's so complex and it contains everything.
Great, dankeschön. Let's hear from the Portuguese language room. Who's going to give us a report?
It's me. Okay, so Sergio started with the description of biotensegrity and how it's related to a human body. And then we started talking about how can we actually kind of feel the biotensegrity, enhance, optimize, or what could be things that would compromise feeling the biotensegrity. We also talk about auto-regulation. It was pretty much this. We were into this big discussion right now. How would a movement, or how could we enhance a feeling of biotensegrity? How could we describe it?
Wonderful, thank you. And what about the Russian room?
Well, I guess we were a little bit delayed as everybody else, and well, I guess I just, well, we had quite an interesting thing when one gentleman was actually, you know, the former MD who was now into the, I don't know, the business management and trying to get a cross transfer from fascia to management field. So it was really kind of the whole conversation very much turned into the systems theory and all this stuff. So, and at the same time, I think that we are, the main part is that we are planning to meet again because, well, the Russian edition of Biotensegrity book is, well, like the draft is ready. So I'm going to discuss with these people and maybe, you know, with the other ones, you know, like how we can improve the translation and hopefully get the Biotensegrity book in Russian by the end of the year.
Woo!
Wow.
Woo! We love that. That's Graham's book.
Yeah. That's the second edition, but we'll need to do some, you know, let's say additional entry chapter or something like this. So kind of to really maybe integrate some of the new stuff there as well, so that we get some good stuff.
Oh, good.
Right. Let's get, clearly we need to get it into Portuguese as well. It's not in Portuguese yet, is it, Graham?
No, not yet. Or Spanish.
Ah, okay.
Chinese, but not Portuguese.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Spanish, who's going to tell us about the Spanish?
Well, first, good news.
we have a group of professionals, doctors in Mexico, that they are translating the Biotensegrity parties in Spanish. They're adding the so that's great. And I'm gonna just quickly share. I don't know if you have seen this. This is from Christian in Argentina. Look at this guy, what he's doing. Can you see that?
Wow.
Holy
Yes,
moly.
holy. So I mean, amazing the way he explained that, like how they're creating just like codes for the students. He's in architecture, so but amazing. Like it's just amazing how everyone is taking this concept and doing the best with whatever field they are. And of course, we were mostly manual practitioners, so we were talking about, how we can explain from with what we feel with our hands using this concept. So it was amazing, and yeah, beautiful. So yes, we are moving into Spanish group as well to have an interested group in Spanish. So mission accomplished.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Susan, I think it would be a great time to talk about the little bigs that we have around the world and if the archive promotes.
So if you're putting together a Biotensegrity interest group, either virtually or in a physical locality-based way, a subject-based way, please let us know. The archive wants to know. And then eventually we want to be able to put a directory together so that I'm a physician in Mexico, I'm interested in Biotensegrity, who should I talk to? Then we can say, bingo, we've got a group for you. So it's our goal to get that indexed. And I'm writing in my book about Biotensegrity interest groups and how to do it and what they are. But I think on the Biotensegrity archive website, there's a BX 101 guide. So it's a sort of, if you're interested in Biotensegrity, it's a start guide. We would love to have that translated into lots of other languages. Maren started with German. So that has something about bigs in it. So please take it upon yourself. It's really good to learn in community. And Chris's embodied Biotensegrity community has been a great way for people to learn. And we've had a big here in the DC area that's been on hiatus a bit while I've been working on my book, which is finally done. But we also did some weekend workshops at Steve's, and so and there's Big Apple Big in New York has met. So there are bigs all over the world potentially, and there are virtual and in person.
There's the Pacific Northwest big too.
Yes.
We met at Kelly Clancy's recently.
Big is Biotensegrity Interest Group, BIG. First one started by Steve and Danielle Claude Martin. And the first meeting of the first one was in Saint-Malo, France in 2009, I believe, right, Steve?
I believe so, and guest speakers are always available. So you need a guest speaker, we can always dig one up for you.
How exciting. So now are we letting people go back into their language-based?
What time is it now? So we have half past. Let me just look at my cheat sheet here. So we have, did we want to, I have here, do we want to open this up to a large group discussion and then do our station ID and then do after parties in the small groups, or do we want to change that?
I'm imagining that there are going to be some people who are less bilingual or multilingual than others, and some might want to go right back into their language-based groups now.
So why don't we do station ID? And then we'll reopen the breakout rooms, and maybe we can tour Steve around to the different groups since he got booted off the call for a while.
Yes.
And then we'll just leave those groups open, and you can stay as long as you want. It's an after party. I'll leave the Zoom on. And
yeah, we're so happy that people are getting to talk to each other. Well, I'm Susan Lowell de Solorzano, coming from Washington, D.C. And my typical usual co-hosts, Chris Morita Clancy and Graham Scarr, are here, but they've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work today. So thank you to them. Thanks to Doug Johnson and Lisa Babiuk for stepping in to co-host with me today. Thanks to all the language room hosts and co-hosts. And maybe Lisa can tell us once again about our very generous sponsors.
Absolutely. Thanks, Susan. So the Biotensegrity Tea Party is a production of the Biotensegrity Archive. All of this information is on the archive. You can get it in the newsletter. We have wonderful sponsors, including Handspring Publishing, that offers wonderful research-based material for movement professionals and manual therapy professionals. We also have the British Fascist Symposium as a sponsor, so please sign up for their newsletter so that you can stay in contact and find out all about the events that are upcoming. Artifact Pro of Madrid, wonderful constructed tensegrity models. Check their website. They also have a code that you can use. Again, it's Biotensegrity, as in tea, the drink, and get a discount from there. Embodied Biotensegrity, Chris Clancy's educational organization in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. She's got a lot of great offerings. Please check out her material. It's wonderful. Amazing what these groups are doing.
And the British Fascist Symposium too, right?
Did I miss them?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I'm also trying to still monitor messages in the chat and stuff.
But a lot going on.
The British, there is a lot going on, but we can mention them twice. You probably
sure.
Them, but they are not just doing an event every 2 years. They're doing some in-between events as well. So jump on their mailing list as well.
Yes, and thank you to all of the volunteers that contribute to the success of the Tea Party, and all of you for participating week after week. This has been an amazing opportunity to connect the world through something that we all resonate with, biotensegrity. Thank you, Dr. Levin, for that.
And thank you, Mariana, our technical advisor, technical director, Rachel Tudor. A lot of people have been working behind the scenes today. Lisa's usually behind the scenes, and she stepped out front today. And really all the language group leaders, we're so delighted. So I think at this point, you can go back into your language rooms if you want to.
I just need to open them up. So before I do that, I want to thank everybody for being here, and to Susan and Graham and Rachel and Mariana and Lisa, and of course to Steve Levin for making this community happen, and for all of the support that you've given us. And to each and every one of you, thanks for being here, for your patience. We've learned a lot. I already have notes about what to do differently next time. You can reach out to me with suggestions. Just send me an email. We also have Biotensegrity Archive Facebook group. My Facebook group is called Embodied Biotensegrity, so reach out to me there, or through the Biotensegrity Archive website, right, Susan? You can reach out to any of us.
Yeah, biotensegrityarchive.org. And Leonid, you're taking over. You've got the archive Facebook page, do you not?
Pardon me?
Well, there's a bunch of us on there.
Yeah, the archive Facebook page.
Yeah, what about it?
There is one.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there is one. Yes, there is one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just adding my email for anybody who wants it.
Just to ask quickly, are we coming back to this group, or after we're done with the small rooms, we're done? I mean, I'm talking for the audience.
I think it's...
We're going to do a free-for-all now, where you can go into your language rooms and kind of party there if you want, or you can stay in this room or jump back in between, and we are kind of agenda free. So we're gonna.
It's called the after party.
Yeah, we're going into an after party phase early today because we've got so many people doing so much in so many places.
Perfect.
One question, YouTube Live, when should I shut it off?
Maybe now's the time. What do you think?
Okay, so let's all give a toast for the YouTube Live crew. Can we have this in multiple languages? Cheers.
Salud. Salud.
Gambe.
Salud.
Oh,
skål. Saúde.
Saúde.
Cheers. Chin chin.
Ciao.
Saúde.